Aloha, I'm Felicia Miller Johnson, and I conduct work life video interviews with career professionals that become an all intuitive conversation. Aloha, welcome to another episode of All Intuitive Conversation. I'm Felicia Miller Johnson, and I encourage people to live smart and ascend to new levels of success in their work and life. Today, I'm going to say it is Miller time. My maiden name is Miller, and today I have the pleasure of connecting with Rissa Miller for the first time. So let's add her to the screen. Aloha, Rissa.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And how are you?
I am doing well. I'm excited to have the opportunity to have this all intuitive conversation with you. You and I have never met before.
Right.
And so this is our first time talking as I get to know a little bit about you. But I feel like we were already kind of, kindred spirits because my maiden name is Miller, and I just changed that to my middle name. And I noticed I was like, oh, her name is Miller too. So I
Yes.
was like, I was
Also my
already.
maiden. Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
awesome? So we were already connected in that way. So tell me, so where are you? Where are you
Uh,
living?
I'm in the suburban Maryland area outside of Baltimore. And it's not where I grew up, but it's where I live. And I grew up in Pennsylvania in a small town named York. And you might only have heard of it if you've had a York peppermint patty, those little round candies. Yeah, they originated here
Yes,
in York, where I grew up.
they are illustrious. So I am a little familiar because I graduated high school in New Jersey. Um, so I'm familiar with that
Mhm.
area a little bit as well. And so it's interesting that you already started off talking about the famous York peppermint patties and how they're famous, that people know them. So my question, one of the ways that I start to connect with individuals is their higher self is connected with by their name because it means so much in as I relate to people. So my question is Rissa, do you know the meaning of your first name?
I do, actually. My first name is Nerissa, Nerissa. I shortened it in middle school because it made me crazy that nobody could ever say it right. So
Oh,
I just shortened it to Rissa, which is exactly how it looks and sounds. But Nerissa was a reporter's byline, and oddly enough, I went into journalism. But my parents saw it in a magazine, and it was a reporter's byline. I was supposed to be a Melissa, but they loved Nerissa. They had no idea what it meant. It was just a name in a magazine on the byline. Years later, I discovered it's a name from Greek mythology. I'm actually not Greek by heritage, I'm Spanish.
uh,
However, it is the name of a villain. um,
oh,
yes, it is the name of a group of sea creatures that are part god and goddess and part monster that use their beautiful voices to lure people to their death and steal their souls. That is
wow.
really not me. But it is what my name means, and it is from mythology.
Wow. Okay. Well, kudos to you for knowing all of that about yourself and the history with that, which is so interesting because when I had looked it up, I just looked up the Rissa part
Yeah.
and it stands for illustrious. And so I was like,
Oh,
okay, so let me go back to what does illustrious really stand for? Because it's like I've heard it, but let me refresh my memory. And it says well known, respected, admired for past achievements.
oh,
And
I love
so,
it.
yeah. So it's like the whole past achievement is well known when you're talking about the goddesses. And what already came out was this woman that is sitting here with her coin, queen, red, illustrious, like just hold this energy vibe. So I was like, and it's interesting because she reminds me of this picture on your profile
Ah,
with the brunette hair. And I was like, okay, yeah, this is in area. And it says on this card generous, practical, gracious, materialistic, the ability to make anything more beautiful, a love of family and home. Be practical about how you proceed, a love of art and beauty, and a sensible approach. So it goes in line with what you were just saying about the whole Greek goddess, right? About be practical about how you proceed. Like, okay, what do I need to know about Rissa? So with that, because it talked about this whole light side and dark side, and what I think what we call today is the shadow
Mm-hmm.
side, and I'm being led to ask about this. So, what is that shadow side of Rissa?
Hmm. It seems very appropriate that you would ask me that question.
Mhm.
So, one of my missions is to allow people who encounter me through lectures or my own readings or my storytelling experiences to embrace or at least acknowledge their own shadow. I have
Hmm.
long ago, I made peace with a lot of my shadow self. And even as a child, I felt very comfortable, even in literal shadows. Most people do not. The dark has never really frightened me.
Mhm.
It's been a large part of my journey to seek balance between shadow and light and to teach others that it's okay to find that too. I have a background in photography, and one of my professors used to talk about a concept called chiaroscuro, and that's a very old word that means shadows define the light.
Of course. Just got so chill. Yes. Uh huh. Keep going.
Oh, and to me, it was a big lesson. It wasn't just a technical photography lesson. I mean, it was that too, of course, because it's a concept in art and photography that if you learn to manage your shadows, your work becomes much more strong and evocative because people respond not just to light in a still image, but also to the shadow in it as well.
Yes. So, card that came out was the whole master your emotions philosophy. Like I said, people, saying because my name means happy, Felicia, and it's like that's what people are like. Oh, just be happy, love, and light, and all that. But the reality is that we do have this whole balance, and there is this shadow and quote unquote dark side to all of us. But it becomes how do you, learn how to navigate and manage
Or
that
even make peace.
without being afraid of it, right? Because it's like one of the things that comes up when I think about like the ocean and just like in the beginning, sometimes at the top it could be like, but then it's like the dark. I think the deeper you go, the darker it
Yeah.
can, you know, um, become. But it's
It's
still so
fascinating.
beautiful.
Yes, it is. And the creatures that live deep below generate their own light.
Their own. Yes, love that. So, with that, what was your? I'm gonna like to ask you, what was that point where you decided to kind of go there with yourself and explore that? Like, what sparked that for you?
I don't know that there was a moment. I think it's just
Mm,
always been part of who I was. I remember even being very young and attracted to things that most people would consider dark, ghost stories, or
mm,
even scary books. And as a fifth grader, I was reading Stephen King, and I was not scared because I think also I understood the difference between fiction and reality.
mm-hmm,
I have a very intuitive and creative side, but I also have a super analytical mind as well. One of the
mm,
questions that I hear a lot, are you a believer or a skeptic? And the answer is always both. I'm both. And I have to examine all the facts before I can say, all right, this is a spiritual endeavor or a supernatural endeavor. But for example, if someone tells me one of my many hats I wear is a ghost tour guide, if someone's standing in front of a window and they tell me there's a cold spot, I'm like, of course there is. You're standing in front of a window from the 1800s. I bet there's a cold spot.
Oh my goodness. So you are a guy. It's so interesting because the next card that came out here was like these individuals reading these books with this whole community. So
Mhm.
how did you get to becoming a ghost tour guide?
Well, my mom and dad took me on my first ghost tour when I was only 8 years old. And I think from that moment on, I knew that sooner or later I would go down that path. I was just a regular history tour guide starting at age 16. I did it as a volunteer for a long time. I've done it in multiple places in different states. I do love history. I think that a lot of the lessons in history are ignored, unfortunately. But if we
Mm-hmm.
can tell them in a way that people might hear them, which is where ghost stories can come in, ghost tours, it's a fantastic way to sneak in lessons without anybody knowing because they're being entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I it was just something I always knew I was going to do, and finally found opportunities and just simply made it happen.
Wow, that's so interesting. Like I said, because next card came out here, another woman that reminds me of you in your picture on LinkedIn, of just balancing both sides of the light and the quote unquote dark side. But then what also came out is this Knight of Swords. But what's standing out for me is this whole chasing down something, but yet still protected over him is this raven. And I know for me, my spirit animal is a raven. And at first, I very much um, resisted in the beginning because there was always this stigma with ravens and crows
Yeah.
that they were, these dark entities, and they were just, they were about death and all that. And I'm like, oh no.
Mm.
But
Super,
yet,
it's just superstition. They're actually,
superstition.
yeah, just superstition. A lot of that stuff goes back, and you can trace the origins of those superstitions into like the Roman times. But
Yes,
the thing is, ravens and crows are so smart. They
they
are
are.
so intelligent. I think they're fantastic spirit animals.
Well, like I said, I was able to embrace them because they were always around. They're distinct sounds. It's not, fearful.
Mhm,
Like you said, you started going back like, well, why do I have this whole, perception idea of this? And you go back to have this history of thinking like, oh, you have this whole judgment about what this bird is. But like you said, but they're so smart, intelligent, and intuitive. Like all of the things that I would use of descriptive words for me
mhm.
resonates. But then at the same time, there's a little, mystery to them, which
Absolutely. Yeah.
a
There's
lot
a
of people
reason that so many legends exist around them. It's because they have their own, enigma.
indeed. So tell me, what is the next goal in your life that you are chasing right now?
Maybe that's where your Nine of Swords came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I have been going through a lot of transitions in my life. I'm in the middle of a professional one now. I'm
Hmm.
leaving the job I had for 5 years and endeavoring out into a different aspect of publishing. But I also am trying to spend more time developing my speaking and readings as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it when you're thinking about leaving a secure spot and you're moving into a new space, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of those, yep,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of those heavy swords that you're carrying, it's time to examine them, and that's actually right where I am. I would love to have a raven or a crow come along and guide me through that. I'll be looking for feathers, but
I'm like, it's here, like, except for me to mention it. Like, what are you chasing down? What is this new goal that you want to hop on this new ride? So tell me, you mentioned speaking and readings, and I think you also said a little bit about that you do cards as well. Tell me more about that.
so I'm a third generation tarot reader, and I also do tea leaf readings and smoke scrying.
You are so illustrious. History of achievements. Yes.
And a lot of the reason I love those formats is I do love their history, and I actually have my I call it my heritage deck here, the
Yes.
old one that's been in my family all these years for over 50.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't travel with it anymore. I don't want anything to happen to it. I was at a public reading once, and someone almost poured a Pepsi there, and that wasn't going to work out for me. But
Yeah.
I also pulled a teacup as well, so that you could see what one of these looks like.
Oh, so those are, do you do the teacup leaf readings as well?
Mhm. Yep, yep, yep. So this predates the tarot and actually just cards in
Yes.
general because paper would have been too expensive at some
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
just simply not available. And a lot of readings were done with the understanding that you would find symbols in chaos. So that's what tea
Yes.
is. That's what the smoke scrying looks like. It's watching for the patterns, watching for the symbols to show up.
Well, now that totally makes sense why you were not afraid in the things that you were reading when you were younger, because like I said, it was commonplace probably as a third generation um, tarot reader, with the whole history with that. So,
I
what?
also wasn't taught to be afraid.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are given like a word like ghost or spirit, and they're taught to be afraid. I
Yes.
wasn't. So I didn't develop that hesitation that so many people have around those concepts.
Yes. Well, that totally is a line like I can make sense, and you don't hear that very often. So, what was that like being a third generation? Like you sit around the table and your parents did readings, or your
Well,
family? Like,
I initially resisted because that's what kids do, right?
oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, I was used to it. I didn't realize that other people didn't have that experience, and I around I guess my teen years, I decided that I wasn't going to do that. Mm. I resisted it, and that's actually when I picked up tea leaf reading. My mom gave me a bag of loose tea and one of those like metal tea ball strainers, and
Mm-hmm.
that thing was a piece of crap. It broke on the first time, and the loose tea was all through my teacup. So I remember as I drank it down, the tea started to stick to the sides. I said to my mom, "This looks like a cat." And she said, "Well, that's a kind of divination. What else do you see?" That
Mm.
first time I saw a cat and a basket and a flower. So I started making drawings in a notebook. I didn't know what they meant yet, and there was really no Google or books or nothing at the library. I had to completely trust my intuition when I
Mm.
started developing meanings for each symbol. So to this day, I do still make drawings. This is the teacup from today, and I draw
Oh,
everything that's in it. And then when I'm doing a reading for someone else, they get their drawing to keep. They get this pen and ink drawing.
wow. That is so you do that like for your personal self every day?
I don't do it for myself almost ever, actually. I I will pull a card for myself some days, but I like to have other people read for me. I feel like when I'm reading for myself or people in my very close inner circle, I'm fully biased. I am.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I don't look clearly on those I love, including myself. And I actually love to read for strangers, people I know nothing about besides their name. Much like what we're doing today.
I was
We're
like,
doing
so
this in my
basically,
favorite way.
again, the Miller sisters is that's this thing like where people are kind of first hear about coming onto this show. It's like, I get those, I was getting those questions like, okay, so are we gonna go on or are we gonna talk beforehand? I was like, no. Like, I don't need to know anything. I was like, I literally will get on the the call 10 minutes, just like you,
Yep.
beforehand, and we're checking the audio. Hey, you look great, da da da, da. And then I go back and kind of do a prayer meditation, and then we go live
Hmm.
and we chat. But that is the basis of why I call the show Awe, because there's this whole fear and respect and all this that comes with that. It's live.
Yep.
I don't know what we're gonna do, but it's like I'm comfortable in that space, and that's what I prefer as well, is that we are just really getting to know individuals. I mean, as I tell people, it's like going to a networking meeting. You don't know
Right.
anybody, you're asking them questions.
Yeah.
Just at the same time, I'm just kind of doing these cards that's just enhancing the
Mhm.
conversation or confirmation message for something that maybe you had already been thinking about. But yes, that's what people have these perceptions or these
Mhm.
things, and it was feeling led to share you the story. Like that was part of the fear, was that I would have to talk to people. Like people like, are you reading like by future and da-da-da? I was like, no. I said, I talk to people, I tap into your energetic field, and just our higher selves are kind of connecting that hopefully you'll be encouraged. And if we never speak again, that something was encouraging to you to help you to live smart. That I
Oh,
was
that
just
makes
this,
perfect sense. Yeah. I always tell people they say, will you tell my future? I say, no, I'm going to give you a reflection of where you are. And it's going to be sharp and precise. And some of it might be uncomfortable and others of it might give you great joy, but it will be a sharp reflection.
well, that's the thing, because then it's like so many people are even afraid of that. And like I said, I live in the Bible Belt as well, so having grew up and spent a lot of time in Christianity, so it's like all these different things. And the hope was going, which is coming back to what we first started with, of yes, there's dark sides and light sides. I choose to work on the light side, but you're not to be afraid of the dark. You have to see those other sides of yourself and know where you are, so you can be balance, because there's nobody that's just 100% happy all
No,
the
that's
time.
just not a thing. Yeah.
It it is not, um, at all. So, being led to follow up with one more thing. So, with your journey of what you're doing, like I said, you've already been illustrious. You've been doing this for 3 generations. What is the encouragement that the spirit team is releasing to you? And it is the sixth chakra, Risa. And it says, the third eye, intuitive perception. I know that what my intuitive senses tell me are true. I open myself to the truth that is within and around me, and I know that it is there for me to receive. I practice developing my intuition, and I know that it is a major aspect of who I am. In the
Yes.
stillness and silence of meditation and contemplation, I will experience and know the truth.
I love it. I feel like those words resonate perfectly for me.
So I want you to be continue to be encouraged on this journey. And then since you have your cards there,
I
and like I,
actually pulled cards for you already, if you would
oh
care.
yes, see, I know it's
So
coming. I am open to receive.
what while we were on the break and
Yes.
I had a few minutes, I asked my heritage deck for one card for you to represent your professional journey. And it
Ah,
is beautifully the Nine of Cups.
you know that's one of my favorite ones. Yes.
Is it really?
Yes.
Um, this means to me that your cup is very full, and you definitely understand your mission, and you're on the right path. You are doing exactly what you're supposed to
Mhm.
do. Then
Thank
I also brought my favorite oracle deck, which is the Flowers of the Night Oracle.
you. Okay.
I'm not affiliated with that in any way. I just like it, and I asked it for your personal like personal emotional world card, and the one that came out is Awaken. It has this gorgeous full moon and this night
Yes.
flower. It is the blazing star, and there's a nighttime moth flying through. You are leading you are leading others towards their awakening because it's this is the moment you've already experienced.
Aw, thank you, Rissa. I had
You're
no idea that that was also going to happen for me in the reading and the confirmation. Thank you.
Mhm.
But as I say in the beginning of this show, I want not only for you to be encouraged to live smart, but I would like to be encouraged to live smart, and for all of those that are watching to be encouraged to live smart. Thank you so much for being open and sharing this part of yourself with me. I do wish you the best in as you journey through your next level and phase in your speakership. So, for individuals that want to learn more about you, where can they reach you?
I am at teandsmoke.com.
That makes so much sense. Tea and smoke. You go.
Yep.
Well, thank you so much for having this all intuitive conversation with me. For those of you that have watched, if you're interested in being a guest, reach out to me, send me a message on LinkedIn. And this has been another all intuitive conversation. Until we meet again.